The morning sun broke gently through the glass windows of Maya's café, spilling golden light over the polished tables and the smell of roasted beans that filled the air. The hum of the espresso machine, the faint sound of jazz from the Bluetooth speaker, and the rhythmic scraping of a spoon against a ceramic cup made up the music of Maya's morning. It was barely 9 a.m., and already the small shop on a quiet side street of Itaewon, Seoul, was alive with its usual energy. Students came for caffeine before class, locals stopped by for takeout, and foreigners, tourists mostly, wandered in for a taste of something familiar. Behind the counter, Maya Johnson, 24, moved with practiced grace. Her deep brown skin glowed in the soft light. Her curly hair was tied in a high puff, and her black apron hugged her slim waist. Her laughter, easy and bright, had become part of the café's charm. She had come to Seoul 2 years ago with nothing but a suitcase, a dream, and a stubborn determination to make something of herself. Now she owned this little place, her café, her world. But every world has its shadows. It started with footsteps, heavy, dragging footsteps that made her shoulders tighten. She didn't need to look up. She knew that sound. "Yo, Maya." The voice was loud, mocking. It made her hand freeze on the coffee cup. 3 men entered Dong-hyuk, the self-proclaimed leader of a small local gang, followed by his 2 lackeys. They were young, early 20s, their dyed hair and cheap leather jackets making them look more like wannabe tough guys than real gangsters. But in this part of town, their kind had power, the kind born of desperation and cruelty. Maya straightened her back, masking the irritation on her face. "Morning," she said flatly. Dong-hyuk grinned, his gold tooth glinting. "You know what time it is." Her jaw tightened. "It's time for you to leave before I call the police." He chuckled, stepping closer. "Police? In this neighborhood? You think they'll care about a foreign girl running a coffee shop?" He leaned on the counter, his breath foul with cigarette smoke. "You know the rules. Every shop pays. Protection fee." "I don't need your protection," Maya said coldly, glaring at him. "And I'm not paying you a single one." The other customers had started to glance nervously at the confrontation. A young couple slipped out quietly. Maya's heart thumped, but she refused to look afraid. Fear was what they fed on. Dong-hyuk smirked. "You've got a mouth, lady, but mouths can get people hurt." His hand shot out, knocking a cup off the counter. It shattered, splashing hot coffee across the floor. Maya flinched but stood her ground. "Get out," she said through clenched teeth. Dong-hyuk stepped closer until he was inches from her. "You think this is America? You think your big voice means something here? We run this street." And that was when the cafe door opened. The little bell above it jingled, cutting through the tension like a blade. A tall man stepped in. His presence alone seemed to shift the air. He was dressed simply, black trousers, a white shirt slightly unbuttoned at the top, sleeves rolled to his elbows. His hair was styled neatly, his features sharp and coldly beautiful. But what drew every eye in the room was the way he carried himself. Calm, controlled, but with a quiet danger that made people instinctively step back. Ha-Joon Kim. To the world outside, he was just another customer. To those who knew the streets, he was the boss. The head of the Biko Syndicate, a mafia family that ruled the underworld of Seoul with ruthless efficiency. But today, Ha-Joon wasn't here for business. He had simply wanted a coffee. Until he saw her, Maya. He noticed her first before he even understood the situation. The curve of her jaw, the fire in her eyes, the way she stood unflinching against the man threatening her. He felt something stir in him, something he hadn't felt in years. The thug, Dong-hyuk, didn't notice who had walked in. "You'll learn, sweetheart," he sneered, reaching out to grab Maya's wrist. Ha-Joon's voice cut through the air. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." The room went silent. Dong-hyuk turned, irritated. "Who the hell?" He froze. Recognition dawned on his face, followed quickly by fear. His friends backed away immediately. Mr. Kim," one of them stammered. Ha-Joon's eyes were cold, expression unreadable. "You're disturbing the lady." Dong-hyuk bowed slightly, nervous sweat breaking on his temple. We were just talking. Ha-Joon stepped closer, his tone almost conversational. I don't like people who raise their voice in cafes. Especially not to women. The gang leader tried to smile. Of course, we were just... Ha-Joon's hand moved so fast Maya barely saw it. He grabbed Dong-hyuk by the collar and slammed him against the counter with such force that the man gasped. Cups rattled. A few customers screamed. You have 10 seconds, Ha-Joon said softly, to apologize and get out of my sight. Dong-hyuk's face turned red as he struggled to breathe. I'm sorry. Louder. I'm sorry. Ha-Joon released him, and the man stumbled back, terrified. Get out, Ha-Joon ordered. The three bolted for the door without another word. The cafe fell silent again, the only sound the faint hiss of the espresso machine. Maya stood there, speechless, her heart pounding. Ha-Joon straightened his shirt calmly and turned to her. You okay? She blinked. Yeah, I think so. Thank you. He nodded slightly, his tone casual, as if he hadn't just sent 3 men running in fear. You make a good latte? She stared at him, caught off guard by the sudden shift. Yeah, best in Seoul. A small smile tugged at his lips. Then I'll have one. When Maya finally found her voice again, she made his coffee, her hands trembling just slightly. He took a seat near the window, the morning light tracing the sharp line of his jaw. Every few seconds, he glanced her way. She tried not to notice, but she did. When she brought his cup, he said quietly, You should be careful with men like them. They don't stop easily. I can handle myself, she said firmly, though her voice betrayed a flicker of doubt. I can see that, he replied, sipping the latte. Still, some fights aren't worth your skin. She raised an eyebrow. You always go around saving strangers in cafes? Ha-Joon looked at her for a long moment before replying. Only the ones who look like they don't deserve to be bullied. Something in his tone, low, protective, sent a strange warmth through her chest. Over the next 10 minutes, they talked. Briefly, casually. He asked about her cafe, how long she'd had it, what brought her to Seoul. She asked nothing about him, though she was curious. There was something dangerous about him, but it didn't scare her. Fascinated her. When he finished his coffee, he placed a few bills on the counter. Far more than the cost of one drink. This is too much, she protested. Consider it a tip, he said quietly. For courage. And with that, he left, just as calmly as he'd entered, leaving behind the faint scent of expensive cologne and a silence heavy with curiosity. Maya stood there for a long time after, staring at the door. But peace didn't last long. That evening, after closing, as she was locking up, she noticed movement across the street. A black car parked with tinted windows. For a moment, she thought it was the gang again. But when the door opened, a familiar figure stepped out. Ha-Joon. Maya, he said simply. I thought I'd make sure you got home safe. Her heart skipped. You didn't have to. I know, he said, but I wanted to. And as they walked together down the dim street, the air thick with the scent of rain and roasted coffee, Maya realized that something had changed. She didn't know who this man really was, or why his eyes carried both danger and sadness. But she knew one thing. The moment he walked into her cafe, her life would never be the same. The next morning, the world looked deceptively peaceful. The soft drizzle over Itaewon blurred the streets into watercolor. Maya's cafe smelled of cinnamon and espresso, the kind of scent that could make a stranger feel safe. But Maya didn't feel safe. Not really. Every few minutes, her eyes flicked toward the front window. She half expected Dong-hyuk and his goons to appear again, sneering, demanding. But instead, every time she looked up, she caught sight of a black sedan parked across the road. Same car as last night. It wasn't moving. It wasn't threatening. Just there, watching. Jin-ae, her best friend and part-time barista, followed her gaze and sighed. Girl, if you keep staring like that, people will think you're waiting for your secret boyfriend. Maya rolled her eyes. It's not funny. That car's been there since morning. Jin-ae leaned on the counter, chewing her gum. Maybe it's that hot guy from yesterday. Maya froze mid-wipe. Ha-Joon. Yeah, him. You didn't tell me he looked like that, Maya. The man was fine. Like K-drama villain fine. Maya tried not to smile. He's not my type. You sure? Because the way you were looking at him said otherwise. Maya shook her head, pretending to focus on the milk frother. But Jin-ae wasn't wrong. There was something about him. The way he'd stepped in silent, fearless. The way his eyes had softened when he spoke to her. Still, she couldn't afford distractions. She had a business to run. Forget it, she muttered. He's probably just some rich guy who doesn't like bullies. But she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to him than that. Around noon, the bell above the door chimed again. Maya didn't even look up when she said, "Welcome to Maya's café." But when she heard the familiar, low-voice reply, "Do you always sound that bored when you greet customers?" She nearly dropped the cup in her hand. She looked up. Ha-Joon stood there, rain droplets glistening on his shirt sleeves. He wasn't wearing the same calm expression as yesterday. Today he looked different, tired, almost heavy with something she couldn't name. He took the same seat by the window. "You got time for another latte?" Maya's lips curved slightly. "You threatening me again?" He smirked faintly. "Just asking nicely." She made his drink, hands steady this time, and brought it over. When she placed it in front of him, he said, "You shouldn't be here alone so late last night. Itaewon isn't safe after dark." "I can take care of myself," she said, folding her arms. "I noticed." They held each other's gaze for a long moment. The hum of the cafe seemed to fade, the world shrinking until it was just the two of them. Finally, she sat opposite him. "All right, Mr. Mysterious. Who are you really?" He raised a brow. "Does it matter? Maybe not. But people don't slam gang members into counters for strangers. You don't exactly scream average guy buying coffee." Ha-Joon took a slow sip, his eyes never leaving hers. "You're observant. It's part of surviving here." He set the cup down gently. "Then let's just say, I help keep the wrong people off the streets." Maya tilted her head. "That sounds like something a cop would say." He smiled, an amused, dangerous smile. "I'm no cop." Something flickered in her gut. "Then what are you?" He didn't answer immediately. Outside, the rain tapped against the window like a slow heartbeat. "I work in management," he said finally, tone laced with irony. "I make sure certain businesses run smoothly. No interference." Maya frowned. "So you do collect protection money?" His expression hardened. "No, I protect people from those who do." The meaning in his words wasn't lost on her. She leaned forward, voice quiet. "You're saying you're some kind of—" "Don't say it," he interrupted softly. His eyes met hers, sharp and warning. "Names have power. Best not to use them." For a moment Maya's breath caught. She understood now. Who he was. What he was. A mafia boss. Jeannie called from behind the counter. "Maya! The delivery guy's here." Maya stood quickly, grateful for the excuse to break the tension. "Excuse me," she said, heading to the back. Ha-Joon watched her go. He could feel the confusion in her. The fear trying to creep in but not quite taking hold. She was different. Most people, upon realizing who he was, either bowed or ran. But she didn't. He respected that. Min-soo entered the cafe quietly, his black suit blending with the dim light. "Boss," he murmured, bowing slightly. Ha-Joon didn't look up. "Report. The Dong-hyuk boys disappeared last night. Word is they got a visit from someone higher up, maybe the Black Tiger crew. They're angry you interfered in their business." Ha-Joon's eyes narrowed. "Black Tiger?" "Yes, sir. Dong-hyuk was paying them a cut. They think the cafe girl owes them now." Ha-Joon's jaw tightened. "Not anymore. That place is under my protection." Min-soo hesitated. "Sir, that might start something." "The Black Tigers won't touch her," Ha-Joon said coldly. "Not while I'm breathing." When Maya returned, Ha-Joon was standing by the counter, slipping on his coat. "Duty calls?" she asked. He gave a small nod. "Something like that. But before I go," he placed a sleek black card on the counter. No name, just a number embossed in gold. If those men come back, call me. Maya looked at the card, then at him. And if I don't? Then you'll regret it, he said simply, his tone not threatening, just honest. She hesitated, then took it. Thanks, I guess. His gaze softened just slightly. Be careful, Maya. And just like that, he was gone. That night, she couldn't sleep. The rain had stopped, but thunder rumbled somewhere distant. The black card sat on her bedside table, glowing faintly under the lamp. Ha-Joon Kim. She'd heard that name before, on the news, whispered in alleyways. The man who controlled half of Seoul's underground trade. Ruthless, untouchable. And yet, the man she met in her café didn't feel like that. He felt human. Dangerous, yes, but protective in a way that made her feel something she hadn't in a long time. Safe. Meanwhile, across the city, Ha-Joon sat in his penthouse office overlooking the Han River. A storm brewed behind his eyes as Min-soo briefed him. The black tigers are watching the café, boss. Want us to take care of them? Ha-Joon leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. Not yet. Let them think they're in control. I'll make my move when they step out of line. Min-soo nodded, hesitating. Sir, may I say something? Go ahead. You've never involved civilians before. Why this woman? Ha-Joon stared at the city lights for a long moment before replying. Because she looked me in the eye and didn't flinch. 2 nights later, Maya's fears came true. She was closing up when the sound of footsteps echoed behind her. Turning, she froze. Dong-hyuk was back. His face bruised, his smile crueler than before. Behind him stood 2 new men, larger, meaner. Their jackets bore a black tiger emblem. Miss me, Dong-hyuk sneered. You think hiding behind some guy's name will save you? Maya's heart pounded. If you know what's good for you, you'll leave. He laughed. You think that mafia bastard scares us? You're on our turf now. He reached for her arm. Her mind screamed. She stumbled back, hand trembling as she fished the black card from her pocket. Her thumb hovered over the number. Dong-hyuk grabbed her. Give me your phone, sweetheart. No one's saving you this time. The cafe door burst open. A gust of cold air swept in. And standing in the doorway, framed by the rain and streetlight, was Ha-Joon. He didn't say a word. His eyes were darker than night, his presence enough to make the gang freeze. Behind him, 2 of his men stepped in silently, suits pristine, eyes lethal. Ha-Joon moved forward, calm but deadly. I warned you. Dong-hyuk tried to hide his fear with a grin. You don't scare us. The black tigers. Before he could finish, Ha-Joon's fist collided with his face. The sound was sharp, final. Dong-hyuk crashed into a table, blood dripping from his lip. Ha-Joon's men grabbed the others, pinning them against the wall. The air filled with the sound of muffled curses and the crash of broken furniture. Maya could only watch, frozen, heart hammering. Ha-Joon grabbed Dong-hyuk by the collar, voice low and venomous. If you or your boss ever come near her again, I'll burn your entire crew out of Seoul. Understand? Dong-hyuk nodded frantically. Ha-Joon released him, and the thugs stumbled out into the rain, broken and silent. When the door closed behind them, the cafe fell still. Maya stood there, trembling. You didn't have to. Yes, I did, Ha-Joon said, his tone softer now. You called me. I didn't. He smirked slightly. You didn't have to. I already knew. She stared at him, a mixture of anger and gratitude swirling inside her. You think you can just show up, beat people half to death, and what? I'm supposed to thank you? Ha-Joon stepped closer, voice calm but firm. I don't need your thanks. I need you safe. Their eyes locked, fury meeting protectiveness, fear melting into something deeper. Finally, she whispered, Who are you, really, Ha-Joon? He looked at her for a long time, then said quietly, Someone who's done too many bad things, but doesn't want to do them to you. And with that, he turned toward the door. Maya reached out instinctively, fingers brushing his sleeve. Wait! He paused, glancing back. She swallowed hard. You can't keep saving me. It's not your job. A small, almost wistful smile crossed his face. Then maybe it's something else. Then he was gone again, leaving the cafe silent but her heart racing. That night, as Maya swept the shattered glass from the floor, she realized something terrifying. The danger wasn't just outside anymore. It was inside her, lodged deep in her chest, pulsing every time she thought of him. And somewhere in Seoul, Ha-Joon stood by his office window, the rain streaking the glass, whispering her name like a secret. He'd spent years building walls around his heart. But one stubborn, brave, beautiful woman had found her way through without even trying. The wind off the Han River had turned colder, carrying with it the smell of wet asphalt and trouble. Seoul's skyline glittered like cut glass, but in the alleys between those lights, the air tasted of smoke and fear. Ha-Joon stood on the balcony of his penthouse, a cigarette burning slowly between his fingers. He didn't smoke often. It reminded him of nights he'd rather forget. But since meeting Maya, sleep had become a stranger. He could still see her face, eyes wide as he stood between her and those thugs. She'd looked furious, terrified, and alive. Something in her voice, the tremor that wasn't quite fear, had hooked into him like a promise. Min-soo's voice broke through his thoughts. They've moved, boss. Black Tiger's lieutenant, Park Ryan, set up a meeting. Word is they're demanding compensation. Ha-Joon exhaled smoke through his teeth. Compensation for what? Failing to intimidate a woman. Min-soo hesitated. They say she belongs to you now. That makes her leverage. The cigarette snapped between Ha-Joon's fingers. Then they just made a mistake they can't take back, he said quietly. Morning found her exhausted but restless. Every clink of a cup made her flinch. Every glance out the window made her heart skip. Still, she opened the cafe because she refused to be ruled by fear. Jin-hee arrived late, clutching an umbrella. You're still doing this? After last night. Maya nodded, wiping down the counter. If I close, they win. Jin-hee sighed. You're brave, girl. Stupid, but brave. I'll take that as a compliment. Yet beneath the sarcasm, Maya could feel the unease tightening around her like invisible wire. She didn't tell Jin-hee about the message she'd found slipped under the door that morning. A folded napkin with a black tiger drawn in ink. Her fingers brushed the note in her apron pocket. A warning. Around noon, the doorbell chimed. Her breath caught. Ha-Joon again. But this time, he wasn't alone. Two men in dark suits followed him, scanning the room like security cameras. The customers quieted instinctively. Maya crossed her arms. You bring bodyguards for coffee now? Ha-Joon ignored the sarcasm. You got my message? She frowned. Message? He reached into his coat, pulling out an identical napkin. They left this at my office too. It's their mark. So, what? This means I'm part of your gang war now? He met her eyes. It means they're trying to scare you. Don't let them. That's easy for you to say. You have muscle, money, guns, whatever it is you people use. I have a coffee grinder. Something dark flickered across his face. That's why you'll move into my protection until this is over. Maya stared. Excuse me? I'm not asking. You think I'm just going to pack up and… Maya. His tone softened, low and steady. They won't stop at threats. If they can't reach me, they'll reach you. The words hit like a physical weight. He took a step closer. Please, let me keep you safe. It was the please that undid her. For the first time, the commanding boss looked human, tired, almost pleading. After a long pause, she nodded once. Fine, but only until this blows over. A faint smile ghosted across his lips. Understood. Ha-Joon didn't take her to his penthouse. He knew better than to throw her into that world. Instead, he brought her to a quiet house overlooking Namsan Park. It was minimalist, all glass and pale wood, the air thick with the scent of pine and rain. You live here? She asked as he opened the door. No, it's one of our safe houses. She stepped inside, half expecting hidden weapons under the furniture. Great. Romantic. He actually laughed. A low, genuine sound that surprised both of them. I'll have Min-soo bring your things. You'll stay here until I say otherwise. Maya walked to the window, staring at the view. You really think they'll come after me? Ha-Joon leaned against the wall. They already did. I won't give them a second chance. Something in his voice made her turn. You talk like this is personal. It is. Their eyes met. He didn't elaborate and she didn't push. But she could feel the current humming between them, the unspoken things that filled the silence. Days passed like a strange dream. Ha-Joon came and went at odd hours, always in a pressed suit, always with tension etched into his shoulders. Maya spent her time reading, cooking, trying to pretend the world outside wasn't closing in. But every time he walked through that door, her chest did something reckless. One night, she woke to the sound of raised voices in the living room. You can't keep her here, boss, Min-soo was saying. They'll find out. It'll make her a target. She's already a target, Ha-Joon snapped. I'd rather have her where I can see her. Maya froze in the hallway. Min-soo's voice dropped. You care too much. That's dangerous. Ha-Joon didn't reply. When footsteps approached, she slipped back into her room, heart pounding. You care too much. The words echoed like a whisper she wasn't ready to face. The next afternoon, she caught him in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, cooking ramen. She grinned despite herself. Didn't picture the big bad mafia boss cooking instant noodles. He smirked. Even criminals need lunch. She took a seat on the counter watching him. So what's the plan, Mr. Protector? You going to hide me forever? He stirred the pot. Just until I finish this war. That's not an answer. He looked at her then, really looked. Neither is running a cafe alone in a city full of wolves. The air thickened between them. She felt the heat of the stove, the scent of broth, the tension coiling tight. Maybe, she said softly, some wolves just need someone to remind them they're still human. Ha-Joon froze, chopsticks halfway to the bowl. For the first time, his guard slipped. His eyes softened, almost vulnerable. You shouldn't say things like that. Why not? Because I might believe you. The silence that followed was charged, electric. Maya's pulse roared in her ears. For a moment, it felt like the whole world had narrowed to the space between them. Then Min-soo burst through the door. Boss! They hit Warehouse 12. Ha-Joon straightened instantly, the tenderness gone. Who? Black Tigers. 2 of our men down. Maya's stomach turned. She'd forgotten this wasn't a movie. This was real. Ha-Joon grabbed his jacket. Stay inside. Don't open the door for anyone but me. Ha-Joon! He stopped, turning back just long enough to say, lock the windows. I'll be back before dawn. And then he was gone. Night swallowed the city. Somewhere in the industrial district, engines roared and gunfire cracked like fireworks. Ha-Joon's convoy sped through the rain-slick streets. He didn't want blood, but the Black Tigers had crossed a line. By dawn, the war had begun. When he returned, his shirt was streaked with rain and someone else's blood. He walked straight to the sink, washing his hands until the water ran clear. Maya appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. You're hurt. It's nothing. That's not nothing. She crossed the room, grabbing a towel. Sit down. He didn't argue. Maybe he was too tired to. Maybe he just wanted to feel her touch. As she cleaned the cut on his forearm, he watched her face. The focus in her eyes, the small crease between her brows. You're not afraid of me, he said quietly. She didn't look up. Should I be? Most people are. I've seen scarier things than you, Ha-Joon. He smiled faintly. Like what? Losing everything I built. Her voice was steady, but he heard the pain underneath. The years of struggle, of proving herself in a place that didn't always welcome her. He caught her wrist gently. You won't lose it. Not while I'm here. Their eyes met again, closer now. Too close. The towel slipped from her hand. His breath brushed her skin. And then her phone buzzed, shattering the moment. She stepped back quickly, heart racing. It's Jean A.E., she murmured, answering. But as she listened, her face drained of color. What? When? Ha-Joon stood. What happened? She hung up slowly. They trashed my cafe. His jaw clenched. The tigers. She nodded, tears stinging her eyes. Everything gone. Ha-Joon reached out, but she moved away. This is because of you. He froze. If you hadn't come that day, if you hadn't made them angry. Her voice broke. I just wanted to make coffee, Ha-Joon. I didn't ask for this world. He stepped closer, guilt shadowing his face. You're right. You didn't. Then fix it, she whispered. Please. He nodded once, voice low and final. I will. That night, Ha-Joon met with his captains in an abandoned warehouse. The rain hammered the tin roof, masking the sound of rage. No more warnings, he said. We finished this. Min-soo hesitated. And the girl. Ha-Joon looked out at the rain, expression unreadable. She's already lost her home because of me. I won't let her lose anything else. His tone left no room for argument. Back at the safe house, Maya sat alone by the window, staring at the ruined city lights. Despite the fear, despite the anger, she couldn't shake one thought. He came into my life like a storm, and maybe I was already standing in the rain. She didn't know if Ha-Joon was her savior or her destruction, but deep down she suspected he might be both. The smell of burnt beans and rain hung in the air like grief. Maya stood in front of her cafe, or what was left of it. The once warm, bustling shop now sat silent under the gray dawn. Shattered glass glittered on the pavement like broken hope. The sign that once read Maya's cafe dangled from one hinge, swaying in the wind. She stepped inside slowly. Chairs overturned. Coffee spilled across the floor, dark stains like dried blood. Her espresso machine, the heart of her little world, lay in ruins. Jean-E stood by the counter, arms wrapped around herself. They came after midnight, she said softly. 3 vans. I called the police, but they never showed. Of course they didn't. Maya felt tears sting her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not yet. This was my dream, she whispered. Every ounce of money I saved. Every late night. Every cup of coffee gone. Jean-E looked at her helplessly. You can rebuild. Maya shook her head. Not if I'm dead before it's finished. Behind them, footsteps approached. Ha-Joon. He stood in the doorway, black coat billowing in the cold wind, 2 of his men behind him. His eyes swept over the wreckage, expression unreadable. Maya turned on him, anger slicing through the ache in her chest. Don't you dare say you're sorry. He didn't. He just looked at her, steady, quiet. This is because of you, she continued, voice trembling. They wanted to hurt you, but they took it out on me. Ha-Joon's voice was low, rough. You're right. She blinked, thrown by his calm. That's why it ends now, he said. I let them breathe long enough. They took something from you. They'll pay for it in blood. Maya's eyes widened. Ha-Joon, no. He turned away, already signaling to his men. Take Jean-E home. Make sure she's safe. Ha-Joon. Maya stepped forward, grabbing his arm. You think killing them fixes this? He looked down at her hand on his sleeve, then up into her eyes. No, but it makes sure it doesn't happen again. The quiet finality in his tone chilled her. Don't go, she whispered. Please. For a moment his expression softened. He reached up, brushing his thumb gently over a smear of soot on her cheek. You shouldn't have to see this side of me. Then don't show it, she said fiercely. You're better than this. He smiled faintly, almost sadly. You don't know me well enough to believe that. And before she could answer, he was gone. The night belonged to Ha-Joon again. The streets of Seoul blurred under neon lights and rain as black sedans moved silently through the back alleys. The Biko Syndicate had gone quiet for days, too quiet. Thank you for watching. Episode 1 ends here. Find out more about the story in episode 2 coming up soon. If you enjoyed the story, leave us a comment. Also like, share and subscribe to our channel, and click on the notification bell to get notified whenever a new story is made.